All right, we are here today live with David Nicol. Man, I'm so excited to have you. Thanks so much for coming into our class today.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you hold a special place in my heart because last year and last summer, I had no idea about crypto, nothing whatsoever. And I remember getting my money from the government, the COVID relief funds or whatever. And I was like, I didn't really know what to do with it. And I asked you, what are 5 cryptos that you would recommend? You recommended them to me and they went through the roof. I'm now I think that once happens, once you catch that bug of crypto, you're like kind of all in. Is that the case?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I still have traditional stocks and mutual funds through the company that I work for, but the only amount of money that I put into those are enough for the company to maximize the match.
Okay, so like a 401k then, right?
Yes, and that just makes sense, right? Because if
Right.
I can, maximize what the company is going to give me, I'm going to do that. But everything else goes into crypto.
Wow. So you are like jumping into the deep end here, which is I want to share my screen here. I've got some things to go over with you. And it is October 21st, just an FYI, if people are watching this in the future years. This is October 21st, 2001. And cryptocurrency has just done some crazy stuff. And the kids are looking at this, 5 years from now and going, Ethereum's 400,000 a coin or whatever. It's like right now, this is where it's at and it's way up. A lot of things are up. Cardano is one that you recommended to me at 135 and now it's, a dollar more than what it is. Just all of these different cryptos have just been some incredible things. But, that leads me to my first question really is that, your overall investing strategy. So you maximize your 401k for one, because the company matches it. And two, and you work for American Airlines. You're a pilot, right? Okay, so you maximize that, and then secondly, reduces your taxable income as well. Those really your main 2 reasons for 401k. Is there any other reasons I'm missing there?
Well, so broad subject, right? But I invest in my Roth 401k actually because it's tax free on the back end.
Okay.
So that when I'm 60 or whatever, and I take my money out, I don't have any tax burden at that point. But I do get taxed.
You take the tax hit now. You take the tax hit now so that when you're 65, you won't be taxed pulling it out of the Roth IRA, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the idea is that is government ever going to say, we're just going to reduce all the taxes for everyone? Probably not.
Right.
So
right.
It's always a gamble, but my belief is that taxes are only going to go up in the future. So if you can figure out a way to reduce your taxes over the course of your investment lifetime, you're better off.
So would you say to my audience, and by the way, like I like to bring in lots of different minds. I think that Dave Ramsey has a position. I think Robert Kiyosaki has a position. I think Millionaire Next Door has a position. I think the book we're reading right now, The Elements of Investing, very conservative. I like all of those kinds of things. It was like when I was a debate coach, I would never tell my debaters, I want you to vote Democrat or Republican. I just want you to be educated. So when you're in the voting box next to me, you're voting based on knowing issues. To me, as an investor, a lot of people kind of put their head in the sand, try not to know anything and just go like, oh, when I'm 65, I'll figure it out. I want them to have thinking about this. And I would probably look at a crypto investor as someone who's a bit of an aggressive investor. Is that you?
I would say yes, but when you talk about aggressive versus conservative investors and the advice that you're taking, you really have to pay attention to who you're listening to and what their motives are. And guys like Dave Ramsey make money by giving people investing advice. And so he has a moral and fiduciary responsibility to give advice that is somewhat guaranteed to make them a profit, okay, right? Because otherwise he's out of work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But I would say you're probably the type of investor who's in the minority where you are really savvy. You have done a lot of things. I think a lot of people, especially like my church does a Dave Ramsey program because people are in so much debt. People are, they can't buy houses. They don't have any savings. They don't have any kind of rainy day fund. They don't if they get in trouble, their credit card is their rainy day fund, which is a horrible way to have to pay for an emergency. So he's really sort of banking on like average American consumers, probably not great with money. And here are some basic tips. Whereas you are great with money and you're trying to be a little bit more in front of it. Is that right?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, you really have to pay attention to your money, right? Because if you don't, somebody else will.
Right.
I had a good friend who worked for Charles Schwab, and he used to say, "I'll take my experience and your money and make it my money and your experience." Right. So it's important to know what's going on. But when you talk about crypto, it's such a broad subject when you talk about money. And I think the thing that really, sold me on crypto wasn't the investment side, i.e., oh, this is going to go up and I'm going to make a lot of money. It was really the idea of what crypto was.
Okay.
And, traditionally you've got, millionaire, billionaire investors. What do they do once they make all their money to keep it? Well, they put it in things like gold and silver and commodities, and they hedge it against inflation. And all those things are important. But when you talk about crypto versus something like gold or silver, if
Yeah.
you're a billionaire and you have $1 billion worth of gold and everything goes south, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to load it all up on your yacht and go somewhere else? Or maybe, I don't know, but there's always a chance that somebody can take that away from you. And the great thing about crypto is that you can move from country to country, region to region, place to place with literally a piece of paper with a QR code on it that's worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That nobody can really take away from you unless they figure out a way to get your password.
Right. And I think
so it's transportable. It's usable as long as there's an internet. It does a lot of things for you that traditional money can't do.
Okay.
Right. And the biggest thing is the ability to move it around transnational.
Right. Interesting. And for you, I know that when you recommend Ethereum to me, it was, let's see here, let's look at the point in the calendar. It was June. It was before July. So it was June, somewhere in there of 2020, because it was COVID relief time. I remember my back was killing me. I was laying on the couch trying to rest my back, and I was looking at crypto, and at $244 a coin, and now it's 4,200 a coin. Like, I like index funds, I like stocks and bonds, but man, this is like 20x. I mean, the math in my head, I mean, it's a massive return on investment. And thinking about that, what is it, you talked to me about the fact that the currencies go, within some different markets and all of that stuff. But what if the internet crashes? What if the sky falls to some degree? Like, I know in May, man, I was texting you like crazy because it was like crypto was up and then it was like off a cliff. It felt like, Ethereum. But then again, you were still like, well, hey, look, it's still way up from when you bought it. It's still way, way, way up from, I remember it went down to 1900, it went down to even like 1700. Does that ever concern you that the crypto market is just so crazy volatile?
Well, it doesn't, and here's why. Did crypto go to zero?
No.
So there's still value.
Right.
And what that tells me is that we're dealing with a market that is unregulated, which is fantastic for some people not so fantastic.
Yeah.
But for me, I like an unregulated market, because as soon as the government and the SEC puts their greedy little fingers into this, the upslope of crypto will start to taper off.
Okay.
Now, the other side of that argument is eventually the government is going to tax all this and get involved, and you are going to see it taper off. You're not going to see 100x gains over the course of a year like you might be seeing in some cryptos right now. But what I would say, as the world goes digital, eventually, 20 years from now, our youngest kids probably aren't going to know what a paper dollar is. You
Okay.
know, they're not going to be used to having 20 bucks in their wallet. They're going to have a phone and they're going to have a Coinbase wallet and they're going to pay for everything with a QR code.
So
That's probably what's going to happen.
dollars are going away, you think?
I think eventually, yes. And what's really important about that last little bit of the conversation is this. There's about $100 trillion in various global currencies floating around the world. Every single country in the world is trying to get in front of this. Even China, who banned cryptocurrency, is creating their own stablecoin currency so that you have to trade through the Chinese currency so that they can make money off of it.
Right.
Right. So if $100 trillion in the world is going digital and there's only $2.5 trillion in the market right now, what does that tell you about the next 20 years of growth?
Right.
It's going to be amazing.
So Dave Ramsey, as we study in our class quite a bit, not a fan. Not a fan. Does that surprise you that old Dave Ramsey here, you know, see, I think I've got what Dave Ramsey says about cryptocurrency. He's just very, like, he doesn't understand it. Let me get back over the top here. He just doesn't understand it. He doesn't get it. He feels like it is a Ponzi scheme. He feels like it is a what's the triangle, the you know, one of those where you just pay in and you keep
pyramid scheme.
Pyramid scheme. So he feels like it's a pyramid scheme. He feels like someone's going to be left holding the bag, and they're going to be what we've studied in our class called the greatest fool theory, meaning the last guy holding the bag is the greatest fool. I can buy GameStop for $250 and then $300, and then if somebody's dumber than me, they're going to buy it for $350, right? Like it's the greater fool. He's very much like this. Why do you think Dave Ramsey is maybe a dinosaur when it comes to investing?
Well, okay, so first of all, you hear the word pyramid scheme thrown around all the time. So in a pyramid scheme or a multi-level marketing strategy, the person that brings you in has to make money off of what you do. That's how a pyramid scheme works, or pyramid style marketing, right? And it's like you said, the top guy makes all the money, and as all the people that get in under him bring other people in and other people in and make money, then it all flows up, right?
Right.
Did I make any money by bringing you into crypto?
No, but you made me very happy. You made me
okay. So it's not. So by definition, then it's not a pyramid scheme.
Okay.
And it's not multi-level marketing.
Right. And he would probably say the pyramid feeds the guy who created whatever that coin is. Like the Ethereum guy is, loving life because people are buying into his pyramid.
Okay, well, people are really what they're doing is buying into his idea of a currency, right? And the only thing that makes a currency valuable is if everyone decides there's value.
Right.
Right. Because if he's the only one that's like, oh, I created this blockchain coin and I'm going to set the price at this. Well, if the public doesn't buy it, then it's worth nothing. Right.
All right.
So here we are, 2021, 10 or so years after cryptocurrency was created, and the global market has certainly decided that there's value in cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So definitely not a pyramid scheme, definitely not multi-level marketing. And Dave Ramsey and guys like Dave Ramsey, Jamie Dimon, one of them, right?
And Jamie Dimon is of he's JP Morgan Chase, is that right?
Yeah, JP Morgan Chase. So there's two sides to this coin. And I don't know per se where Dave Ramsey is on at this, but he might be the guy that has studied traditional markets his whole life, and he's not willing to study the ins and outs of cryptocurrency, and therefore he says, oh, it's stupid, don't invest in it. Right, because he's ignorant of the subject.
Right.
Whereas you've got Jamie Dimon, who bashed crypto for all these years. Meanwhile, he had satellite companies just like Warren Buffett buying every single Bitcoin they could humanly get their hands on
to artificially keep the value down, so he could.
Of course,
wow.
It's an unregulated market.
Right.
So guys like Warren Buffett can trash crypto all day long and then open up satellite companies that buy all the crypto they can, and then all of a sudden make billions of dollars in crypto.
Right.
when it goes up like this.
Interesting.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, Jamie Dimon in an article the other day said, "I still don't like crypto. I still think it's worthless, but it's going up, so I guess I'll play."
Right. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it is. It's like, and I remember that Saturday Night Live sketch when they had Elon Musk on there, and he was pumping Dogecoin prior to that, and they asked him on the weekly update, on the comedy sketch of the weekly update part of it, and they were like, "So what is Dogecoin?" And he gives a full, explanation of what it is, and then the next question is, "So what is Dogecoin?" Like this, it rattles our brain, and I think that one of the problems with Dave Ramsey is that he is dealing with people from my church who spend more than they make. And so to put money into something as volatile as cryptocurrency, which I've made a lot of money on it, you've made a lot of money on it, and we can validate it, but it was always my discretionary investment, like my disposable investment money is what I was putting into it, because I was like kind of dipping my toe in the pool. I wasn't going into the deep end like you were. I was like, I'm going to test this thing out a little bit. I'm still going to go index funds. I'm still going to go over here. I'm still going to be safe with this and that. So for Dave Ramsey to recommend crypto to a bunch of people who are in financial distress, and many reasons, and I remember I sat through one of those classes and people went around the room and just talked about like how much debt they were in. And it was like, oh my gosh, like it was a bit of a mind boggling thing. Now you and I would say, well, crypto, they really need crypto then because they can buy low and sell high and pay the debt off. But that isn't, maybe what he's thinking, more of a conservative mindset, which is good. Like, that's why I tell students, you could be liberal, you could be conservative. I just want you to think about these things. For you though, what have you had the most success with crypto? What has been what has been the one where you're like, oh my goodness, like what's your big trout, your big marlin that you hold up when you talk about crypto to people as far as, the amount it's gone up?
Well, I mean, that depends on the day, right? It fluctuates so much. But I would say overall, my best investment has been Ethereum.
Okay.
And I pay attention to a guy named Tika Tiwari, who is arguably the top cryptocurrency advice giver, or however you want to say it.
Right.
He really writes some genius articles when you read and study what he does. And he was a hedge fund manager on Wall Street who jumped into crypto 10 years ago.
Wow.
And he started talking about this stuff, and he started recommending cryptos based on their utility and what he thought they could provide to the people, and when I say the people, I'm talking planetary.
Yeah.
I'm talking people across the globe. And his foresight is genius. When he recommended Ethereum, I think Ethereum was at like $12.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine that.
Right.
Imagine throwing $500 into Ethereum when it was $12.
Right.
There are people that did that, and now they're multi-millionaires.
And so, Dave, is that the strategy? I mean, like you told me today about Solve, SOLVE, medical cryptocurrency. Is it, when you hear about something like this, like I've been doing this lately. I have $500. I've thrown it into Polkadot. I've thrown it into SHIB. I've thrown it into a Dogecoin. It just, anytime I heard about one of these cryptos, I just sort of I felt like I was kind of taking a flyer on it, that if it did some crazy, what Dogecoin did, or if it does such a crazy thing, like you're talking about Solve, where it went up 92% or whatever it was. Let me look at that again here. Is that the way to go? Or should you pick a crypto and say, this is my crypto, this is what I'm going to be in with no matter what? Or should you diversify?
Diversify.
Okay.
You always, in any trading strategy, you always want to diversify, because if you put money into one thing and it crashes, you're done.
Right.
Now, what I would say about Shiba Inu and Dogecoin is those are meme pump and dump coins. Okay. Eventually they might have some utility, but right now I would argue that they really don't, and they're moving based on the Mark Cuban's and the other guy, Elon Musk's tweets and things like that.
Right.
So one of the things that I've learned and that I believe in is utility in a token. Like, if you see a token or a coin that has utility, that's where your wealth is going to be built. For
Okay.
instance, Ethereum, Hodgkin, or not Hodgkins, but Vitalik and Buterin, he's a genius because he built an open source platform that everyone else could come build their coins on his blockchain.
Okay.
Right. So now he has over, I think 50 of the top, I think it's more like 75% of the top 100 tokens are built on Ethereum.
Wow.
So what does that do to the value of Ethereum?
Yeah. It's like having the iPhone and all the apps are played on it or something. It feels like
Exactly.
everybody's
That's exactly right.
through
Um, so for your class, I would say that if they really want to learn and understand cryptocurrency, one, YouTube is your friend. And two, go to Netflix. And there are some amazing documentaries and videos on cryptocurrencies and interviews with the people that created these cryptocurrencies and what their ideas are for these currencies going forward. Because a lot of these developers that created these cryptocurrencies, they didn't do it to trade in and out of the dollar or the yen or the euro. They did it to replace all those things.
Right.
Right. So it goes beyond, hey, I'm gonna buy Ethereum at 200 bucks and sell it at $10,000, make a bunch of dollars, US dollars, and I'm gonna go pay off all my bills and my mortgage.
Yeah.
Their thought process is these currencies are just gonna replace fiat currency.
Okay.
Right. And when you got guys like Dave Ramsey that say, well, I don't understand this and it's worthless.
Right.
You could say that the US dollar is pretty worthless too, because we got off the gold standard. And the only thing the US dollar is really based on is our government's reputation.
Right.
And the United States of America's ability to back up the things that they say they're going to do.
Right. And the treasury bonds are, yeah, I mean, in the amount of debt, our national debt is skyrocketing. And yes, I mean, that's interesting. I did see the Oakland A's, we're taking Dogecoin. You could buy tickets with Dogecoin. So there's that. But it's funny, when I bought SHIB, it like went triple, literally like overnight. I bought 43 million coins of it because it was like a fraction of it wasn't even like, it was like 2% of a cent, it was like nothing. So, you throw 400 bucks at it. I mean, it's sort of like just taking a half court shot. It's gonna swish, or you're just gonna like total miss. But then again, if you take enough of those swings, I mean, just think about those people who bought Dogecoin when it was so cheap. I mean, that was Mark Cuban talked about. He's like, boy, if you bought Dogecoin when it was whatever fraction of a cent, you've like won the lottery these days. It's just kind of an interesting conversation. Has there been any crypto that you've been like, oh man, or you've been like, I got punched in the face on this one, or has it all been pretty rosy?
No, I mean, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I took my entire Marine Corps retirement savings and put it into crypto.
What year was this?
And this was in 2018. So here's what happened. I bought into crypto in 2017, went through the roof, right? Bitcoin almost hit $20,000. Life was good, but I'd only put $5,000 to $10,000 in it.
Yeah.
Went up. And then all of these cryptocurrency companies got sued. Oh, right. Yeah. And so the reason for the 2018 crash were compliance issues, and all these companies had to sell off a ton of their crypto to be able to pay for legal fees and lawyers in order to either one, get into compliance or pay fines, so on and so forth. And then we experienced the crypto winter, right? From 2018 to about 2009, to about 2020. So I bought as crypto was in the crash. It went from $1 trillion market cap to $500 billion. And me being a stock market guy at the time was like, it's in half. This is a great time to buy in.
Right.
So it went from 500 billion to 100 billion.
Right.
So I turned 20 grand into 2 grand.
Oh man.
And at that point I was like, okay, well, it didn't go to zero. So I'd rather just lose all my money than sell out right now. Right. And so I didn't sell out. And then I started listening to Tika and a couple of other podcasts. I'm like, okay, starting to understand this a little bit more. I started to invest every month. I put whatever I could afford to put in every month. And then I started to understand all the reasons why crypto does what it does, i.e. the Bitcoin happening, blockchain reduction cycles. These are all long conversations, but as you study it, you start to figure out what's happening. So what's going on right now, and I told you this when I got you into it, totally predicted it, right?
Right.
Remember, I told you, into 2021 is going to be face melting, insane gains.
Yeah.
I told you that.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm some oracle or prophet. It's because I studied it and I understood how it worked. And now I'm profiting based on that education.
And you're still long on Cardano, right? You're still like, this is going to be the next, I mean, this is like, as far as like, a cheap one that maybe somebody could get into, this is still pretty inexpensive. Is it going to be crazy like Ethereum at some point?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm long on all of these cryptos.
Okay.
Like I'm an emerging market class or asset class like this usually has about a 20-year maturation point from mass adoption to saturation, right? So we're talking about 20 years of massive gains in this asset class.
Yeah.
And so for your students, and take it for what you will, conservative or not conservative, in my opinion, your students at their age should be maximizing their investments in cryptocurrencies. Because guys like Dave Ramsey might say, oh, I would never put money into cryptocurrency. He doesn't have a choice, because every mutual fund that you buy in the next 5 years is going to have cryptocurrency in it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have a choice. It's get on the train or get run over.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, we've had a lot of stuff in our class that, and I've quoted you a couple times, by the way. I've said my friend Dave does not like, he always wants to have a mortgage or paying off a mortgage is not a priority to you. For me, I've got it on my board, what I owe on my mortgage, and I want it paid off ASAP. It helps me sleep at night. What are your thoughts? Why not pay off your mortgage, and why try to get a 30-year mortgage or as long a mortgage as possible?
Okay, so
there's some heavy questions for an early morning. You drink your coffee, buddy? You better have that coffee ready.
I know I need like an extra cup. So here's okay. Let me ask you this: have you, and I'm sure you have, but have you talked to your class about compound interest?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so every single kid in your class should have a compound interest calculator on their iPhone or whatever they use. And when you look at your compound interest calculator and you talk about mortgage rates, one, there's some security in the fact that if you get a 30-year mortgage, and let's say you have a $500,000 mortgage, and your mortgage payment at a 30-year is $3,200 a month, and your mortgage payment at a 15 years is $4,000 a month. Okay. Mm-hmm. Your 15-year interest rate is 2%, and your 30 years 3%.
Right.
Are you going to pay your mortgage off faster at 15 years? Of course. Are you going to pay less money in interest over that time? Of course. We know that, right?
Right.
With a 30-year mortgage, what if you lose your job or you get in trouble?
Yeah.
You don't have to pay as much money, right? So there's some buffer there. So there's a little bit of security. And if you want to pay your mortgage off faster, you can always plus up your principal payment.
Yeah.
Right. You're paying a little more in interest over time, but you're trading that for some security.
Right.
Right. And you're not having to pay as much. Now, the other side of that is if you get on your compound interest calculator and you take the difference between your 30-year mortgage and your 15-year mortgage, let's just call it $800.
Right.
And you invest $800 a month for 30 years at 12% interest, you're going to have millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And it's sorry, it's our bell. And I've got to let you go in a minute here, but it's aggressive. And I think the flip side of that would be if I paid off my mortgage and I didn't have to pay that $3,200 anymore, like let's say I expedite my payments. Now I've got $3,200 a month that I can throw into the market. Now there's taxes and insurance stuff to you, but like, let's just say 2,500 more a month. You're right. You're losing the time that you would have from the 0 to into 15 years or 0 to into 30 years. But you would have, at some point, you would have a better opportunity to invest more, which would be more of a conservative to me. Like,
yeah, but hold on, Brian, hold on. So you're
Yeah.
saying, hey, if I just took $2,500 a month and paid my mortgage down at a much faster rate, well, what if you took that $2,500 a month
Yeah.
and invested it
Right. Yeah.
at that same rate?
And so I think that it comes down to, like, for you, you've put yourself in a good financial position to be able to be a little more of a risk taker to some degree than our staunch conservative Dave Ramsey, who's like, people just don't know how to pick stocks. They don't know how to pick. They just invest in the very safe, simple index funds, mutual funds, pay off your mortgage, don't have a car payment, all of the principles of like, don't ever have money working against you in any way. I don't know. It's an interesting, and by the way, I don't completely agree with Dave Ramsey. And in some things, I do say, for me, having my house paid off, I sleep better at night. I would sleep way better at night. And I get it. And you're telling me you would not sleep as well at night, knowing your money was doing such lame things as paying off a mortgage, and it could be doing explosive things, which was putting it into Ethereum or something like that.
But Brian, think about this. With your house, the average real estate typically goes up in value, right?
Right.
But it's not going up 10% a year. And 10% a year is an extremely conservative estimate in the market.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So one of the things you get, what do you get by paying off your home? Okay, you have a home that might be going up a couple of percent a year in value, right?
Yeah.
Versus having a bank account with millions of dollars in it that you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You have liquidity that way.
That's
right.
true.
Whereas paying off a mortgage, you might have to rely on a bank to give you a loan back on that home.
Yeah.
That may or may not have the value that you want it to have.
Great arguments. And I love it. I love the difference of opinion, which is what I want my students to hear. Like, I think I agree with you. I agree with you to some degree. I still am going to pay off my mortgage. Like, I'm going to put my money in some conservative things. I'm going to put my money in crypto, and I'm going to put, big chunks toward my mortgage to pay it off. This next summer with our sports camps, we're going to be paid off with our mortgage. And then from there, I feel like at that point, I have enough of a nest egg, which I guess we all have to sort of rationalize, what is our nest egg minimum that we need to have to feel comfortable. At that point, I feel like I'm totally comfortable and I can really maximize a lot. But then again, you're right. You're losing time, and you're losing the time of the compounding interest. The closer I get to 65, the less time I have. I get it. It's all, and it's great. I love this kind of debate. And Dave, we're going to bring you back here again in a month or two, when you're going to tell us about Verbo, and you're going to tell us about real estate that you've bought, where you have it's the home away kind of stuff. And you don't do rental properties. You do vacation rentals, correct?
Right.
And you've taken some of your crypto, you haven't touched your crypto. You've just decided to diversify into more of those. And I'm going to have that discussion next time. Thanks so much, Dave, for coming in, man. I got kids at the door here. And you're fantastic. This is great. I love the discussion. I love to have a contrary view, which is great. Thanks so much.
Okay, Brian, we'll see you. Have a good one.